At the Michigan SBDC Network, our mission is simple: to help businesses grow and succeed. Our consulting, training, and information services make it easier for businesses to reach their potential. Whether you're currently in operation or just starting out, we have the right tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. Visit us online to get started on your path to success today.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us in today's panel discussion on the talent struggle. We all know that everyone is struggling to look for employees. And so today we're going to hear from our SBDC consultant specialists, our human resource specialist, Mark Rideout, and our restaurant and hospitality specialist, Emily Mara, on ways to combat the talent struggle. And so both Emily and Mark joined our team at the beginning of the pandemic, and they bring a wealth of knowledge and decades of experience in human resource and restaurant management to our clients. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Emily and Mark are going to join me here.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Mark.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Hi, Shannon.
Hi. It's so wonderful to see you all here today. And we are, like Shannon said, just grateful to have this opportunity to be here to talk about really what are you being impacted right now with. Of course, we know that you're competing against every other industry to find talent. There is the uncertainty of hours and benefits and all of that has always been consistent with the hospitality industry. So that's what we really want to pinpoint today and talk about and really dive into. So, we invite you as you're watching this to please ask us one or two things that you want to take away from today. And again, I'm just so happy to be here alongside Shannon and Mark and try to provide you with as much guidance as we can in a short period of time. So the more that you can help engage with us, the better this experience will be for everybody. So if there are any questions, I'll take a look at the comments right now. All right, so I'm going to actually open it up myself, if that's okay. And I am going
please.
to ask, okay, wonderful. So I'm going to ask Mark, where should employers be looking for team members right now? Because as I said, everybody's looking for talent. You drive down the road, you see, outside of a ethnic restaurant that has 20 yard signs saying hiring, 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 and they've got a big poster. Is that an effective way of bringing in a team member, or how should people be looking to find their talent? Where should they be looking?
Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming in today and listening in on our little discussion here. So let's talk for a few minutes about that. How do you find people? Because there's some really important things that are going on in the market today. And one of them, of course, is the struggle for talent. There's a couple different ways that I've seen employers go about doing it, and some of them are more effective than others. I always advise a person that's in the restaurant industry to look in your own backyard. The best employees typically are those employees that live not too far from where your business is, that are familiar with the clientele, that maybe know some of the people in that area or that are comfortable in that area. So when you're recruiting for somebody in the restaurant or hospitality industry, a lot of times we're looking at people that are in the general drive time, 30 minutes drive time of your place or not. So yeah, I've seen those signs outside too, and sometimes they can be effective. You can get somebody that on an impulse wants to pull in and check out your place and see what it's like. And so if you're one of those employers that puts a sign out, that's great. The question that I have for that employer is, what happens if I walk in the middle of the rush hour and I'm that one person that you've been looking for 2 weeks, and how am I handled and how am I treated? Because I just stopped in and I happened to be driving to Kroger's to get my groceries and I just got, ready to decide to get back into the workforce. How am I treated? So I don't mind people that do that. All I will tell you is make sure that you have properly trained everybody inside that restaurant as to what they should do when somebody walks in that door and they say, hey, I saw your sign outside. Can I talk to somebody about getting hired? So that's a number one thing that I'd be careful about with the signs outside.
That's a great point. And I do think that that is the community, again, that your restaurant creates. So how people are invited in or how they're greeted speaks volumes on how they're going to be treated as an employee. So excellent point. Were there other places that you would recommend that employers would be posting maybe job descriptions? And I know Shannon has some really great recommendations of examples for those job descriptions and how to put them together. But can you touch point on maybe a few of those? Maybe there's websites or Facebook.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of websites that are restaurant specific that we're aware of, and I think those are important. And I know that we have those available, and we'll probably put them up on the screen. But one of the ones that I've seen out there in the restaurant specific world is a website called Poached, like poached eggs. And so Poached is a website that's specifically for people that are in the restaurant industry. And when an employer clicks into this website, what they will find is they will find job openings that are listed in that general area. For instance, if you go to Poached, there's a Poached Michigan subset, and then you can go and look in the areas like Ann Arbor or Grand Rapids, or up in the Thumb, if you're up in the Thumb area, or Traverse City, for instance. There are jobs that are in that industry that are there. Another one that we found that seems to be a pretty active one is called the Restaurant Zone. And again, that's another specific website for the industry. What's happened in the world of recruiting over the last 10 years, as we've gotten more and more digital and more online, we end up going into these more specific areas. And so the Restaurant Zone is another good one that I've seen that's out there. And again, similar to Poached, it deals with the hospitality industry. There's what I call there's some general websites that many employers are using. And sometimes you can find people that are really, really good in these, but you might have to wade through a few more non-qualified candidates. So, those would probably fit into the Indeed.com is one of those that we've seen. Indeed is sometimes takes a little bit of work to navigate through and get to the right place, but it's definitely one that a lot of candidates are populating that website. And so I think that you want to bear in mind that sometimes people go where they're familiar, and a lot of people aren't familiar with Poached or the Restaurant Zone, but they might be familiar with Indeed. There's a lot of media advertising about Indeed, and so you can maybe find people there.
Shannon, did you have something to add?
Hey, Mark.
Yeah. Hi,
I
Shannon.
do. I just wanted to add on that, like some of them, I believe it's Poached, that if you do the premium feature, then it'll also post it on Monster, ZipRecruiter, and Indeed. So then you only have to really do one listing and it'll go into all the places. So as you're putting your marketing dollars together, your advertising dollars to hire these people, look into that, because if you're going to be posting on multiple platforms, it might be more cost effective just to post on one of them and let it filter out through all the other ones.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And, you mentioned that keyword marketing. And, I want to maybe switch gears for just a quick second here and maybe go away from talking about websites. But I think one of the things that we have to remember is that when we're marketing our company to a potential employee, there's some things that we have to do in order to make sure that we're getting our message out there. And I think the first thing that I would suggest is that you need to have an image and a brand for your restaurant. And you have to be clear about what that image and that brand is, because if you're not clear about that image and brand, then I'm not sure as a employee what I'm getting involved in with your company. And so everybody in your operation ought to be able to express that and know what that's about. And this sort of goes along with where do you find good employees? And if you have good employees, I would ask your good employees to refer other good employees to you. Building the team is really built on finding people that share the common traits and the kind of attitude that you want. And if you've got somebody that really demonstrates that every day on the job, I would certainly be asking that employee and giving them bonuses if you can for a good referral. The other thing too is customers. customers, your loyal customers are sometimes your best recruiters. And there's nothing wrong with making your customers aware that you're interested in finding good quality people to work there and serve them. And I've seen some operations where they've actually given small incentives or small, free dining tickets or whatever you want to call it, or free credits or something, just because they were able to find a good employee. So, but before you do all of that thing, the one thing I would tell everyone that's listening is you better look at your reviews on Google. And you better pay attention to that. I know some owners that have never, ever, ever looked at Google. And I think that's a big mistake. And maybe the two of you could weigh in on that point because, Shannon and Emily, I'm sure, have more experience in that than I do.
Oh, it's so key. And that actually is a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about next, which, I think that having a company culture that is inviting, like Mark said, and really engaging your employees that you have, your customers, and continuing to create that community that you have built. The reason that most of us go into hospitality is because we love to take care of people. We love breaking bread. We love just the connection that comes from being around a table with others and serving them in a way that makes them happy. And so, bringing that back and that focus back, instead of thinking about how traumatic the past year and a half has been, let's look forward, and let's look forward at building a brighter community, a more effective community. And in doing so, that means that you have a very clear description of what the requirements of the position are going to be. And I think that Shannon has worked on some really good materials to be able to share with you, and we'll do a screen share, I think, that she'll do when she presents it. But putting together an acceptable and an approachable job description is so imperative, because you are, again, competing on the screen like we are today with a ton of other companies who are hiring. So having that brand identified and having that whole culture of your company presented, I think, is really important. So Shannon, can you touch base a little bit on that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I want you to think of your hiring process as part of your marketing plan. I'm going to share a screen here. So I'm going to go through what I wanted to show as what I felt is a really good job description. And so here they're looking for servers, bartenders, hosts, and bussers. So they're looking for all front of the house. And so what I want to highlight here is how they talk about their employee experience, right? So here at Hops and Drops, the front of the house team members are simply the best. We pride ourselves on high quality, world-class service with a smile. Being a member of the Hops and Drops family means delivering an experience to our guests, which includes deep knowledge of our ice cold beer, unique bar offerings, and scratch kitchen. We're a complete team here, and not only do we take care of our tables in our own sections, but we take care of every guest in the building, and we take care of each other. And so I feel like that's really important to be sharing here. Like, what is the employee experience going to be, right? So you want to think about that. This is a 2-page ad here. So they've got, how their team is, and then what their team members are. And then they've got some family values here, talking about their business when it was founded. And so you want to communicate your mission and the values to your employees for that employee experience in your job descriptions. With every business out there hiring right now in every single industry, how are you going to stand out? And why should a qualified candidate choose your restaurant over another's? So look at this example here. Here, we're seeking line cooks with 3 years of experience, and you must be able to handle a high volume and work well under pressure. So to me, who are you looking for? To me, if someone has 3 years experience, they already understand that is going to be a high volume and you're going to be working under pressure. So are you getting the right quality candidates that you were hoping to get with this job description? And so you really want to start thinking about some of that stuff as you're putting together your job descriptions and putting your mission statements in there, including your job description, your values, a little bit about your restaurant, and making it looking like from the employee perspective. And it's not always about you, it's attracting that talent. They've got a lot of options to go to now. So why should they come to you first?
Hey, Shannon, I just wanted to add something. That was really good. Could you bring up that the last one that you had on just the description? I just wanted to point out something to our listeners. and our viewers today that's up there. For that line, I think it was a line cook job that you had up there, the job description.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see that. So here's the thing that I would be thinking about if I'm a potential employee is, are they hiring somebody that's more interested in cooking or more interested in golfing? And so that's the one thing that I would just caution against is I'm not saying those are bad benefits. I mean, maybe you've got a cook that likes to golf, but the only point is that be careful what you're presenting in terms of the benefits, because you may be attracting a person that is more of a golfer than a cook, and they're going to fake they're going to get you to spend time on hiring them because they're going for the free golf and the range tokens and that type of thing, as opposed to actually having the skills that you want in that kitchen. I'm sorry to interrupt, but thanks for bringing that up, because that was just a really good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That was
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. And so, like another thing that I saw as I was, looking at some of these job descriptions was one of them said, we'd love to partner with someone with line cooking skills that's not seeking a chef position. So, that could speak to people a couple of different ways. For one, it could show that there's no room for advancement. If you only want to be a line cook and you don't want to advance, then that might be a good job for you. But if you're ever thinking about advancement, why would you apply there? It says they're specifically looking for someone who's not seeking that. So you've got to be very cautious in what you're putting into your job descriptions and think about it from the employee perspective, right? You're speaking to the employee. And so you want that job description to be something that they want to get, not something that makes them uncomfortable reading it right away.
Right. I suspect that employer probably had an experience with somebody who tried to take over the kitchen, and they never want to have that happen again. And so that's their way of dealing with it instead of dealing with the actual issues.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's great if that's what you're looking for, but you have to make sure that you are 100% aware that that's what you're looking for. Right. So if that's what you're looking for, definitely word it that way, because that's the people you're going to get. But if you're looking for someone that wants to have longevity with your company and wants to grow with your company, you might want to change that wording a little bit.
Absolutely. Great points all around. I want to say, anyone who's watching this, we're almost 18 minutes into it. So if you do have any questions, please do drop those into the comment section. We would love to answer them live here today for you. If there aren't any, we keep checking it. I'm going to ask actually to talk about right now, like creating the community. So we've talked about brand, we've talked about identity, we've talked about your company culture, and that all creates a community that your clients want to come into. So you want it to be a happy environment. You want to maybe have fresh flowers in the space during the summer and spring. It's a great time to go foraging and even in your backyards or beautifying your spaces and putting something lovely in, putting that extra touch of personalization for your employees when they walk in, so that they feel like they're walking into an environment where they can take a deep breath and put a smile on their face instead of going, because if there's two different sides, and your customer is really going to see that, and they're going to engage with it, and your patrons need to continue making sure that they're taken care of and that they're appreciated for bringing their finances to your restaurant. So creating a fun environment for your team to work in, a safe environment, following the COVID restrictions, especially now because we're seeing the cases rising, make sure that everyone's wearing masks, make sure that they're washing their hands, and continuing to follow this guidelines from the CDC. It looks like we do actually have a question that popped up, and this is back to more examples of good job descriptions. The good and the bad were both pretty helpful. So I don't know if there's any way that we have additional ones that we can talk about today, or we can always send some out to you, Laura, if you'd like. And then questions to ask during hiring managers, do's and don'ts. I know that we have something here now, and I do have a few job descriptions I can pull up, but we'll go to that one now because I know that Mark has some different questions and recommendations for things to ask potential employees, correct?
Yep, that's right. So I appreciate Laura and our audience bringing up that point. So once you get past hello and how are you, usually what I want to find out is why did you want to apply for a job with us? And that's sort of where I like to start most of my interviews. But in this industry, it's really, really important to find out what the motivation is for why is that person in my front door today. And so I like to ask that as one of my key questions. The other thing I want to find out from an employee in the hospitality industry is tell me a little bit about the longest you've worked for any one employer. And the reason I would want to ask that is because I want to find out, is this person trying to requalify for maybe unemployment benefits, or, hey, I'm here because I need to, I lost my unemployment and I need to get some money. And, the longest I've worked for somebody else was 3 months or 5 months. And so that's one of the questions. I'm sort of trying to find out a little bit more about their background and why are they motivated, and do they have a record of turnover regularly, or are they more stable and somebody that will stay with you for a longer period of time? And then actually, Emily and I talked a little bit about some of these other questions, but one of the questions that we sort of think is a pretty important question is, what should you be doing every time you enter or leave the kitchen? And that's important because what we want to hear is we want to hear somebody that has a mindset about paying attention to what's going on. So you want to hear answers to that type of question that indicate that the person is not leaving with empty hands, either going in or out of the kitchen. And maybe it's processing a check for one of the team members. Shannon showed us that first job description, which I think was an excellent job description, where they talked about taking care of everybody else on that team. And a person who goes in and out of the kitchen with empty hands is really not taking care of their team members, because they're not paying attention to what's going on. In teaching, they sometimes talk about it as a global awareness kind of a thing. You have to be aware of what's going on in the environment in the facility. And so I would just ask those kinds of questions. And then you're going to ask all the other regular questions about, why did you leave your last employer? Where do you see yourself going? How does this fit in? How long is your commute to get here? What hours are you available? What kind of pay are you expecting? All of those standard questions. We could spend a whole hour teaching our audience how to interview people, but those are some three, for our one audience member that asked that question, those are three key questions that we sort of think are important to ask.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you brought up also about, entering and leaving the kitchen every time, because if you don't have a team that is help your brother, help your sister mentality in food and beverage, the ship is going to not float. It won't keep rowing down that water canal. So it's really important to have that teamwork mentality, and that goes along with cross-training people. I know that it's never exciting to think that, a person who is a front of the house person may be going into the kitchen and preparing some things, but you know what? When someone calls out and you don't have a full team, you need to make sure that people on your staff are able to step into multiple positions. And so I think that cross-training is really important. And that goes back to also the side of what Shannon said is, maybe someone doesn't want to continue to be a line cook for the rest of their life. And maybe they do want chances for different engagement or doing something different each day, and not just knowing that they're coming in doing the same repetitious stuff. So offering opportunities of cross-training, offering opportunities of, just learning different skill sets so that you can have a fully functional team, regardless of maybe if some people call out or not. So anything to add on that from the both of you?
Well, life events happen, right?
Correct.
And if we've learned anything in this past year, is that anything can change in a matter of minutes, and people need to be flexible, and they need their employers to be able to work with them, especially if someone in their household needs to be taken care of, or if someone gets COVID, or just any other life event that could happen. They need to have an employer that's going to be a little bit of flexible with them. And so cross training is going to help you in that, relieve that high pressure situation that we talked about, right? If you've got your dishwasher that maybe can do a little bit of food prepping in there to help you out during those busy times, or if a bartender is not busy and they can take on the role of hostessing or serving, just so you guys can all still breathe during those super high volume hours, having that cross training is going to protect you so much in case someone isn't there to help.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think also, you know, when we're talking about culture, I think that the thing that I have observed with a lot of companies, a lot of clients is that because we're having a difficult time finding an employee, we are willing to accept poor behavior and poor employee behavior. And I would really encourage the owner to not accept that, because what happens is not only does it affect your customers and the service that they're experiencing, but more importantly is it's going to drive away your better employees. And they're going to just look at you and say, look, how come you can't take care of Mark's problem? Mark is always high drama. Mark comes to work every day and wants to complain about everybody else or everything that's going on around him. Mark wastes my time. Mark. And meanwhile, just because I'm filling a spot, and it's harder in the mind of the owner not to hire somebody than it is to let me go. They let me continue to play out my silliness at work. And I would just really encourage employers to think about taking advantage of this time of transition to a core team of the right people and find the right kind of people. Certainly pay is important too. And I think we have a question about pay that's in our chat box right now.
We do. Yeah, it looks like in our opinion, is tip pooling an attractive benefit, especially when it comes to cooks and other traditionally non-tipped employees?
So who wants to take that one on?
I have an opinion.
Why don't you go first then? You go first and then I'll follow.
I really do like the idea of tip pooling, especially now as, you know, your teams are going to be leaner. You're going to have fewer staff. And so making sure that everybody gets a little bit of that tip and making sure that, you know, your team is all compensated, you know, accordingly. I think that that's important. Sometimes, you know, and I had the pleasure of being a lot of front of the house in my beginning years of what I was doing with hospitality, but I would walk out of there with, you know, sometimes $1,000 from bartending. And I would look at the poor people in the kitchen in my back of the house and they would be working for $10 an hour. And I worked the same amount of hours, if not less, in a much different environment. That's not the heat of the kitchen. That's not the demanding, you know, keeping all your checks and making sure that all of your orders are being done appropriately and getting the food out quickly. That is a talent that is a high skill talent. And I think that definitely if you are, you know, a tipped establishment, I think that opening that up to pooling is a smart thing. So I will let others weigh in.
So as an HR
Go ahead, Mark.
person, yeah, I'll just pop in for a minute. I'll give you my standard consultant answer, which is it depends. And it depends on what your practice has been. It depends on what wage are you paying your tipped employees versus your non-tipped employees. And if you're paying your tipped employees at the absolute minimum that you're permitted to pay them, and now you're going to take away money from them, I think you better be prepared to make that up in more of a base wage kind of a concept. And so I think that the industry is certainly in transition right now, but I also agree with 100% with what Emily said is you've got the people, the bussers, the dishwashers, the line cooks, all the behind the scenes team members that are, I mean, they're working really hard. And if you're paying them, you know, at what I consider below a living wage at $10, $12 an hour, and you're not giving them the benefit of the tipping, then I think you're missing the boat, and you're setting yourself up to lose people.
Absolutely.
So to answer Michelle's question, I'm in favor of tip pooling.
Great. And so actually this is a great time to transition in talking about wages and talking about benefits packages. Traditionally, Hospitality has not been an industry that has offered benefits that include health insurance and dental and vision. And, thinking about maybe looking at a group insurances that your team could maybe get more affordable insurance or different options that may be out there, I think would be something to look into, and really assessing a living wage for individuals, and thinking about the fact that if they do get sick and they can't go to the doctor and they can't pay for their prescription, they're going to be sick longer. They're going to be out longer. They're not going to be able to come back to work and do the good work that they wanted to do because they were exposed to something that got them sick, whatever it might be. And so, looking at benefits and looking at different options. I know we have the EAP that's out there for individuals that are struggling, and hospitality. Let's be honest, there's a lot of people who have substance abuse. If your employees are drinking on the job, that's definitely a problem, and that's something that needs to be addressed. And looking at maybe helping them get counseling for maybe some of their different addictions that they have is really important. So I know that Michelle now has come in from a fair labor standpoint. Can tips be pooled just from carryouts only, separate from server tips, leaving the servers to collect their tips as usual?
So I think Michelle is asking a very specific Fair Labor Standards Act question, is what it sounds like to me. And so this forum isn't really the appropriate forum to answer an FLSA question. That's one that I think if Michelle would want to engage with the SBDC, with the local SBDC, then they could get that question to me, and then maybe we could answer that question in that forum. Because what we're involving here is we're getting into some quasi-legal kinds of things, and I know we have to avoid giving legal advice because none of us are lawyers. And so Michelle, I wish I could answer that question directly for you, but I can't right now, and I appreciate your understanding that. Yeah. So, but you know where we're going with that one. So,
thank you.
Yeah, the question is that I would just refer you back to the FLSA website for the wage and hour division, and they have fact sheets that are available at the FLSA website, which I can post at the end of this session, and then you can just reference that and go through, and there'll be a good fact sheet in there on tipped employee compensation and what the rules are following that. And if that doesn't help you, then you can certainly come back and talk to us here at the SBDC, and we'll get you in touch with the right people if we can't answer the question for you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle, for your question, and thank you, Laura, for your question. Anyone else who's watching today that has a specific question, please do drop it into the comments so that we can, help you the best possible right here, right now, live streaming. If you're watching this in replay, we would appreciate seeing maybe a thumbs up or some sort of emoji, just letting us know that you did catch this broadcast. And if you're watching it live, feel free to say live.
Yeah. Now, we got off track for a minute, and I don't want us to get too far off track. Shannon was making a really good point about the flexibility, and her comment about the one thing that we've all learned in the pandemic is the need to shift gears quickly and rapidly. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to continue to encourage us to think about that. And then Emily was getting into talking about the wage rates and the living wage. And the thing that I want to say as an HR expert is that the one thing that I'm seeing over and over and over again in almost every business is the drive towards a $14 an hour wage rate as sort of the going rate right now for all levels of labor. And I'm seeing companies that have traditionally been in the $10 to $12 an hour range are now really looking at that $13 to $15 an hour range. And they're in some cases adjusting their prices upward. And I have a personal experience on that I want to talk about. That I have a favorite restaurant that I go to near where I live, and they run a small little boutique restaurant. They did great on transitioning to carry out, but they only have like eight or 10 tables. They don't have the ability to social distance inside, so they've been pretty much closed. But they've kept the team intact. I went in yesterday to get my favorite pizza that I like to get on a Sunday night when my family doesn't want to eat pizza, but I do. So I get this pizza. They are charging me the same price today that they were charging me 2 years ago. And I just know that that's a recipe for disaster because I know the price of their ingredients has gone up. I know the price of their rent has gone up. They actually did some remodeling during the pandemic, which was good. They needed a little bit of remodeling, but they have. I know how they're justifying it is because they've reduced their staff, and so they're still able. But as you layer your staff back in, as a business owner, you have to really address the cost profile. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind. I pay $12 for this pizza. I'd pay $14 for it. I mean, I wouldn't bother me. I'd still get the pizza because I go for the pizza. And I know I can get that quality food there. Now it might be different if it was a fast food, big chain box kind of a store. They have a different set of dynamics. But I think our business, SBDC, we're talking to small employers. We're talking to the mom and pop operators. We're talking to the 1 or 2 site owners. And for you've created a buzz about your place. You have a loyal customer base. They are going to be there. And the only thing I will say is look at what happened to your tip revenue during the pandemic and look at whether people were tipping you for carry out or not. To me, that's been the biggest differentiator that I've seen between a restaurant that is staying in business and one that isn't, because the ones that are staying in business, the customer base recognized that even in the carryout, they were still tipping 15, 20, 25% in some cases. And you know what those numbers are as an owner. And so go back and look at those numbers, especially in the middle of the mess when you were doing all carryout, and look at whether your tip revenue, what your average tip was on your bill. That's a good indicator of whether you have a price sensitive product or not. And if your tips went up, like some churches that I know, their actual giving went up during the pandemic, even though they weren't having anybody in church. People were giving more money. And so don't be afraid to raise your prices thinking that you're going to lose customers, because you won't. What you're going to do is you're going to be able to attract a better quality employee. And that's why we're talking about that now. Is the best way to get the best employees is pay the best money.
Absolutely. Great point and very good advice. And this is totally not part of the talent side, but it's so important that you are understanding your cost of doing business, because if you are still charging the same price as you were 2 years ago and you are running a menu that is 3 pages long, your food costs are going to be astronomical. So whether you use QuickBooks or whether you don't, but knowing how much one dish costs you to create, including the dried pantry goods, including, any other additional items that may be seasonal that, the pricing changes, get a handle on that now, because if you don't, the likelihood of surviving all of this chaos is not going to be pretty. So please get everything under control and tighten up that business operation. It'll do you well, and
So I want to touch on that too.
Please, Shannon.
So sorry, I have a little bit of a delay in my internet, so bear with me, people. I apologize. But touching on the, raising of the prices, right? So if you're going to be offering extra services like DoorDash or Grubhub, you can have a different pricing menu on those services than what you would have in your restaurant. People are paying for a convenience. And so the convenience is being able to order it and have it delivered to their house, right? So you can absolutely, because DoorDash and Grubhub and those other services are charging you to be able to do that. So you shouldn't have to pay additional. So you can offer a different pricing model on that.
Great
Not
point.
that we got off on talent, but
yes, no, great point. Great point. All of these are wonderful points. And we're so grateful for everybody who's been here today, who has actually watched us through. And we invite you to ask any questions. If there are any questions that come out after the live, we'll make sure that they are directed back to us from the SBDC front end, and they're just wonderful. So I have, let's see. Oh, no, that was just a question from before. It was Michelle's question. So is there anything else that either of you want to talk about today as we're rounding out to the 40-minute mark?
I want to say one thing about the recruiting effort, and to take it back to the talent struggle. I know that the best employers, regardless of industry, spend and devote time every week to finding talented people. And so if you're in your business 60 hours, 40 to 60 hours a week, I'm typically seeing them spend anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a week, roughly 10% of your time, spending time on hiring or talking to potential employees. And that's true even if you have a full crew, you should still be talking to potential employees because life happens, and things change, and things can change on a dime tomorrow. And somebody's school could get closed, somebody's job could be eliminated, somebody could have to move quickly, somebody might have a mother or a father that's ill and needs to be tended to. And just as you thought all the problems were solved, now you have a big problem because somebody left. And so if you don't have a reservoir, I mean, at your restaurant you have a kitchen and you have a refrigerator, and in the refrigerator you have your stock of food. Well, you should also have a refrigerator of talent somewhere that you have. I call them the possibles. And
Yeah.
people that have stopped in and expressed an interest, and maybe you thought they might be a fit, but maybe you didn't have an opening right then, but those are the ones to go back to. So I would really encourage people to do that as well. And just in closing, but thanks, Emily, for moderating today, and Shannon, thanks for supplying us with all those great visuals that you supplied us with too.
Yes. Shannon, any closing statements or words to say?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining in today. Emily and Mark, I want to thank you both for your time. It's always great to be able to have a conversation with you guys. I mean, even I get so much out of it every single time we talk. So if you guys, we are part of the I-69 trade corridor region of the SBDC. And so if you are in our region, we're happy to work with you. But even if you're not, please register for consulting on our website at sbdcmichigan.org. We have counselors all across the state that are expertise in all of these different areas to help you. So Emily and Mark, I want to thank you again for your time, and I hope you guys all have a great day.
I want to say one last thing, and our services are free.
Yes, they are.
There's no charge for services for clients that are registered. So please register and like us on Facebook or wherever you're going to like us, or send us an emoji. But most importantly, remember, it's free. You've paid it for it in your taxes, and please sign up for this free counseling. It's good.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Thank you.
we are able to bring all of our services to you at no cost because we are federally funded by the SBA, and we get matching partnerships here at the MEDC and then our host regions too. So that's how we're able to bring all of these services to you at no cost. So really it's prepaid for with your tax dollars. So you should definitely take advantage of it.
Beautiful. Thank you both. It is, like Shannon said, always a pleasure to be able to have conversations like this and really just let you know that your business is a moving model, and we're here to help you, and just reach out. We're a lifeline that can definitely just help benefit. So thanks for joining us today. Pam Schwartz, you're very welcome for the great training session. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for the next one.
At the Michigan SBDC Network, our mission is simple: to help businesses grow and succeed. Our consulting, training, and information services make it easier for businesses to reach their potential. Whether you're currently in operation or just starting out, we have the right tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. Visit us online to get started on your path to success today.